Think your job is dangerous? Maybe you got a paper cut filing a report, or burned your tongue on the break room coffee. Please, cry me a river. We are about to meet the guys who treated the Geneva Convention like a to-do list. Welcome to Science's Suicide Squad. These aren't your average guys in lab coats looking at beakers. These are the mad geniuses who looked at a dangerous experiment and said, you know what this needs? More me.
No, use me.
We are talking about drinking vomit. We are talking about stabbing eyeballs. We are talking about hanging yourself for data. They ignored safety regulations because they hadn't been invented yet. So put on your safety goggles, or don't. These guys certainly didn't. Let's dive into the madness. Let's kick things off with the smartest man in history, Sir Isaac Newton. You know him for the apple and gravity, but in 1665, he was just a bored student in lockdown. While avoiding the plague, he got obsessed with how eyes perceive color. Most people would dissect a sheep's eye. Newton? He preferred the DIY approach. He grabbed a bodkin, a long, thick needle used for sewing leather. He looked at the needle, then at his own face, and made a terrible decision. He shoved the needle into his eye socket, right between the eyeball and the bone. He pushed it back as far as it could go, literally poking the back of his own retina. Then, he started wiggling it around to squeeze his eye from the inside. Why? Just to see what would happen. He wrote calmly, several white, dark, and colored circles appeared. He was nearly blinding himself just to see a light show. But he didn't stop there. To test after images, he stared directly at the sun with his bare eyes. He stared so long, he actually went blind and had to lock himself in a dark room for 3 days. For months, he saw the sun every time he looked into a dark corner. The man invented calculus, but apparently, he didn't have enough common sense to put the needle down. From a genius poking his eye, let's move to a student drinking, well, you'll see. Meet Stubbins Firth, an American doctor with a stomach of steel. In the 1800s, he wanted to prove yellow fever wasn't contagious. His method? Becoming best friends with black vomit. Step 1, the direct approach. He sliced open his own arms and poured fresh, warm vomit into the cuts. He did this 20 times. Result? No fever. Stubbins wasn't satisfied. He needed to get closer. Step 2, the eye drop. He poured the black sludge directly into his eyeballs. It stung like fire, but still, he stayed healthy. Step 3, the chef's special. He actually fried the vomit in a pan and inhaled the fumes. He described the smell as old blood. Delicious. Step 4, the taste test. For the grand finale, he filled a glass with fresh vomit, and he drank it. He drank 3 glasses, noting it tasted slightly acidic. He essentially turned himself into a human trash can for science. The punchline? He never got sick. He declared victory, convinced the disease wasn't contagious. But here's the twist. He was totally wrong. Yellow fever is contagious. Stubbins just got incredibly lucky. He took samples from patients in the final stages when the virus was no longer active. If he had done this experiment 2 days earlier, dead. He wasn't a genius, he was just the world's luckiest gross-out artist. Fast forward to 1929. Meet Werner Forssmann, a surgical intern with zero chill. He had a crazy theory. You can shove a tube up your arm and reach your heart. His boss said, no, you'll die instantly. Werner heard, do it in secret. He needed sterile tools, but the head nurse Gerda had the keys. So he turned on the charm, playful flirted with her, and convinced her to be his test subject. He strapped her to the table, low pretending to prep her arm. But the moment she looked away, the old switcheroo. He sliced open his own arm and shoved a lubricated urinary catheter inside. Yes, a pee tube. In his vein. By the time Gerda realized, the tube was already 2 feet inside him. He untied the screaming nurse and dragged her to the X-ray room in the basement. With a rubber hose dangling from his arm, he walked past shocked colleagues. In the X-ray room, he pushed the tube the final inches right into his heart. A friend tried to tackle him to stop the madness. Werner literally kicked him away and shouted, "Get the picture!" The X-ray proved he was right. The tube was safely in his heart. His reward? He got fired immediately. The medical board called him a circus clown. He actually quit medicine and became a lumberjack for a while. It took the world 27 years to catch up. In 1956, he finally got his Nobel Prize. Moral of the story? If you want a Nobel Prize, you might have to stab yourself first. Next is Joseph Barcroft, a British scientist who hated being comfortable. He wanted to test the body's limits, and his favorite lab rat was himself. Experiment 1, the gas chamber. In World War I, he wanted to test cyanide gas. He walked into a lethal gas chamber with a dog named Billy. The rule? I leave when the dog passes out. Billy fainted in 90 seconds. But Joseph sat there for 3 full minutes just to see if his brain would stop working. Experiment 2, the deep freeze. He wanted to know what freezing to death felt like. Naturally, he stripped naked and laid down in a freezer. As his body shut down, he stopped shivering, a sign of near death. His report? I felt a beautiful warmth and wanted to sleep. His friends had to drag his frozen body out and thaw him with blankets. Experiment 3, the glass box. He locked himself in a glass box for 6 days to simulate Mount Everest. The oxygen dropped so low his skin turned blue. To prove his blood was black, he broke his own wrist. Who does that? He tried to write a letter but just scribbled nonsense like a toddler. He proved the brain fails before the heart. Ironically, after all this madness, he died peacefully on a bus at age 74. Probably the most boring death possible for a man that wild. Finally, meet the final boss of self-torture, Nicolae Minovici, a Romanian scientist with a burning question. What does hanging feel like? Most people would just guess bad, but Nicolae needed data. So he built a pulley system and hired assistants to effectively choke him. Level 1, the warm-up. He lay on a bed and pulled the noose. His face turned purple. Too easy. Level 2, the tiptoe. He stood up and leaned into the rope. He lasted 5 seconds before tapping out. But Nicolae was a perfectionist. He needed the full experience. Level 3, full suspension. He told his team, "Pull me up and don't stop until I signal." His feet left the ground. His neck crushed instantly. He described a burning fire in his head and shooting sparks in his vision. He managed to hang there for 26 seconds. That is an eternity when you're strangling. When they dropped him, he collapsed. He couldn't swallow food for an entire month. His throat was wrecked. And his reaction? He did it 11 more times. He hung himself a total of 12 times just to prove it cuts off blood, not air. He basically tortured himself to write the ultimate user review on ropes. From vomit cocktails to DIY heart surgery, these men proved one thing. The line between genius and lunatic is thinner than a needle in the eye. They tortured themselves so we wouldn't have to. Thanks, I guess? But seriously, without their madness, modern medicine wouldn't exist. So, which one of these mad lads was the absolute wildest? The vomit drinker, the self-hanger, or the heart poker? Let us know in the comments below, and hit that like button. It hurts way less than hanging yourself for 26 seconds, I promise. Subscribe for more unhinged history. See you in the next one.